Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time we're going to take a look at a case that's, well, it's a bit of a twisted one.
Yeah, definitely.
We're heading to Barcelona in 2017.
All right.
So imagine a smoldering car found by a reservoir,
Okay.
and inside, a body.
Oh, wow.
A body burned beyond recognition.
That's rough.
It's like something straight out of a nightmare.
It sounds like a pretty intense mystery to uncover. What do we know about the victim in this case?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting. The victim was Pedro Rodríguez, a suspended officer with the Guardia Urbana.
The local police force in Barcelona.
That's right. But Pedro wasn't just any officer. He had a bit of a reputation, you could say.
A reputation? What do you mean?
Well, let's just say there were allegations of violence, some disciplinary issues. It's like his past was already hinting at a dark end.
I see. So there were already some red flags, maybe?
Exactly. And then you have Rosa Peral, Pedro's partner.
His partner. Okay.
And guess what? She was also a Guardia Urbana officer.
Wow. So both of them were on the force.
Yep. And their relationship, well, it was far from a fairy tale.
Far from a fairy tale, huh?
Right.
So I'm guessing there was trouble in paradise.
You could say that. There was a lot of passion, a lot of jealousy. And the sources you gave me paint a picture of a lot of conflicting accounts.
Ah, so it's a bit of a tangled web already.
It is. And to make things even more complicated, we have two more figures to introduce, both of them also Guardia Urbana officers.
Wait, so there are even more police officers involved in this?
You got it. We have Rosa's ex-husband, Ruben, and then a former lover named Albert.
Oh boy, this is getting complicated fast. So we have a love triangle, or maybe even a love square, right?
Right. It's like a classic noir film where everyone has secrets and the lines between love and hate get all blurred.
Definitely. And I bet Rose's behavior is going to be key in all of this, right?
You're absolutely on the right track. Rosa's behavior during the investigation was, well, it raised a lot of eyebrows.
Raised eyebrows. How so?
Her stories about Pedro's disappearance were all over the place. Her alibis kept changing, and there's this one detail that really jumps out. She went to the police station to make a statement about Albert while he was already in custody.
While he was already in custody. That's interesting. Almost like she was.
Trying to control the narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even manipulate the investigation from the start.
It's a bold move, that's for sure. So how do investigators start to unravel what really happened?
Well, they follow the digital trail. Mobile phone location data becomes crucial in this case. It puts both Rosa and Albert at some pretty key locations, including the reservoir where Pedro's car was found.
So the technology becomes like a silent witness.
Right. And it starts contradicting those shifting alibis that Rosa was giving.
Okay, so the phone records don't quite match up with Rosa's story. What else?
There's this whole thing about a missing bullet from Rosa's gun.
A missing bullet. So that sounds pretty incriminating at first, doesn't it?
It does, but there's a twist.
Oh, there's a twist. I knew it. What is it?
Turns out, it wasn't a bullet at all. It was a keychain. A wedding favor from Pedro's previous marriage. Can you believe that?
A wedding favor? Wow. That's almost poetic in a way, isn't it? Like this symbol of love, you know, eternal love, turning into, well...
a memento of something much darker.
Exactly. And speaking of dark, we can't forget about the blood spatter evidence found at Rosa's home.
Oh yeah, that was disturbing. The patterns, the location, it all pointed towards a pretty violent struggle.
And there was even a neighbor who testified about hearing a chainsaw, wasn't there?
Yeah, that detail always sends chills down my spine. It suggests a level of, I don't know, premeditation that's just...
It's chilling, like they were trying to cover up something truly horrifying.
Right. And then to top it all off, there are these text messages that Rosa sent to herself from Pedro's phone.
To herself? Why would she do that?
She was trying to frame her ex-husband, Ruben.
Wow, it's like she's throwing everyone under the bus. It's all starting to feel like a very, very calculated plan.
It does, doesn't it?
But why go to such lengths? What was her motive? It's a good question. I mean, why go through all that trouble? What was the motive?
Well, the prosecution had a pretty straightforward theory, right?
Yeah, I remember that from the source material. The idea was that Rosa and Albert wanted Pedro gone, you know, out of the picture so they could be together.
A classic love triangle gone wrong, right?
Sounds like it, but is it really that simple?
I don't know. Because the sources also mention this incident where a man died during a police chase.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that.
Rosa and Albert were involved in the chase. And the case ended up being ruled an accident. But what if Pedro knew something about it?
Ooh, like something that could have put their careers in jeopardy.
Exactly. Maybe he had some information, some secret that threatened to expose them, unravel their whole lives.
And remember what you said about Pedro's reputation. He didn't exactly shy away from playing dirty, did he?
Not at all. So maybe he was using this information, this secret, as leverage against Rosa and Albert.
Okay, I can see that. And maybe they felt like they had no other choice but to silence him?
It's a chilling thought, for sure.
Yeah.
But it would definitely explain the level of planning and premeditation that we see in this case.
Right. And don't forget about the financial motive, too. Didn't Rosa stand to inherit a lot from Pedro's death?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The insurance payout, his assets, it all adds up to a pretty hefty sum.
So was it just pure greed?
I'm hesitant to say that. I mean, I think it was probably a combination of things, passion, ambition, fear, and maybe even a twisted sense of loyalty between Rosa and Albert.
Their bond seemed pretty unbreakable, didn't it? Even during the trial, they stuck together, each claiming to be the victim, manipulated by the other.
It was like this constant game of smoke and mirrors, who was telling the truth, who was pulling the strings.
And ultimately, the jury decided that Rosa was the mastermind, the one calling the shots. Her sentence of 25 years really reflects that, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that really gets me. Even from prison, Rosa maintains her innocence. She still says that Albert was the one who orchestrated it all.
Really? Wow. That's dedication to a story.
I know. And it gets even wilder. According to some of the later sources, she even tried to hire a hitman to kill Ruben.
Her ex-husband? No way.
I know. It's like her thirst for revenge or control or whatever it is. It just never ends.
You have to wonder, though, is she just desperately clinging to any hope she can get? Or is she still manipulating everyone, even from behind bars?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But one thing is for sure. This whole case had some serious ripple effects.
Yeah, definitely. It went way beyond Rosa and Albert.
The community, the Guardia Urbana, their reputation was tarnished by all of this.
It makes you question everything, right? Like, who can you trust?
Absolutely. And there's also this element of tragedy that just hangs over the whole thing. There was a life lost, families torn apart.
Especially for the kids involved.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. There are some sources that suggest Rosa's own daughter might have witnessed the murder.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Can you imagine the trauma? Carrying that kind of secret, that kind of memory.
It's heartbreaking. And it just adds another layer of complexity to this already tangled web, doesn't it?
It does. And it reminds us that even though the legal system might deliver a verdict, the emotional scars of a crime like this run much deeper. There might be justice, but is there ever really closure?
It's a good question. Because even with all the evidence, all the testimonies, you still get this feeling that something's missing.
Right, like there's still a piece of the puzzle that we haven't quite found.
And maybe that's what makes this case so haunting. It's not just about solving the crime. It's about trying to understand the darkness that can exist within people.
It's a reminder that the line between good and evil can be so thin.
And that anyone, under the right circumstances, could potentially cross it.
Yeah, it really does make you think, doesn't it, about the choices that people make and how easily things can spiral. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes this case so fascinating, so disturbing. It really stays with you even after you think you've got all the answers.
Exactly. And as we've been talking about this case, with its web of relationships and shifting truths, it really doesn't offer any easy answers, does it?
Not at all. It's like you're trying to look into this really dark abyss, and you can just barely make out the shapes in the shadows.
That's a great way to put it. You see these glimpses of love and hate, ambition and despair, and it all just kind of swirls together and leads to this tragic and irreversible outcome.
And like we've talked about, the impact of this crime goes way beyond just Rosa and Albert.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Think about the community, the Guardia Urbana. The whole idea of public trust is shaken when the people who are supposed to protect you end up being involved in something like this.
Yeah, it really makes you question everything you thought you knew about the people who are supposed to uphold the law.
It's a stark reminder that the line between good and evil can be so fragile.
And that anyone, even those we think we know really well, are capable of crossing it.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so unsettling. It's not just a story about a crime. It's a story about human nature and the capacity for darkness that we all possess.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. What does this story tell us about ourselves, about the choices we make, and about the masks that we all wear?
And maybe even more importantly, how can we learn to navigate the complexities of human relationships and recognize those warning signs that might be telling us that something isn't quite right?
These are the kinds of questions that I hope will stay with you long after this deep dive is over. Because the truth is, sometimes the most disturbing mysteries aren't the ones that remain unsolved, but the ones that force us to confront the darkest parts of ourselves and the world around us. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of a case that shocked a nation. It's a story that will stay with me for a long time, and I hope it does the same for you.